welcome back to the course on metrology. So, the next topic of discussion is going to be on gear. So, when somebody tells mechanical engineering, immediately what comes to everybody's mind is only gears, because these gears have brought in big revolution in the industrial revolution days. So, in 1857 when the industrial revolution happened, or just before that. So, what happened was people were trying to convert one RPM, that means to say from a drive to another RPM. They wanted to increase, decrease, they want increase the RPM. Second thing, they wanted to increase their torque. So, they were looking forward for several methods. First, they tried meshing two different wheels without teeth. Then they found out there is lot of slip. So, they wanted to stop the slip. Then they had these tooth. First, initially they had only 3 or 4 tooth meshing with another wheel where they had 3 or 4 tooth. Then they realized that these 3-4 is not going to help us. Then they started making all around the periphery teeth. And once they made all around the periphery of the wheel these teeth, and then when they started meshing it, they found out there is a positive drive. So, then people started realizing and playing with the gear profile, gear geometry, and then they realized that they can get many more outputs, or they can modify to the gear design to meet out their requirements. So, gear plays a very important role. So, in this lecture we will try to cover topics: introduction, then gear terminology, error of spur gear. There are several gears. So, out of which spur is the most common and simplest gear. So, that is why we talk about spur gear. Then measurements of gear elements, then composite method of gear inspection. These are the topics which we will cover in this lecture. Gears are the main element in transmission system. As I said, from one point to another point you have to transmit power. So, then gear is one of the main element which is used for it. It is needless to say that the efficient transfer of speed and power, gears should conform perfectly to the designed profile and dimensions. As I told you in the beginning, a wheel got converted into a gear. It got converted into a gear. So, when it got converted into a gear, this is a gear tooth, and this gear tooth placing at different locations, and their geometry plays a very important role. If there is any small discrimination or discrepancy from the drawing to manufacturing, then whatever was the efficiency will go down drastically. Misalignment and gear runout will result in vibration, chatter, noise, and loss of power. Many a times when we see when we drive a bike, or when we drive a car or any other system, we try to get lot of sound. So, this sound are nothing but vibration. So, it can be chatter, it can be noise. So, all these things can happen if there is a misalignment and gear runout which is there. On the other hand, threaded components should meet stringent quality requirements to satisfy property of interchangeability. Today, we can go to the market and we can give certain specification and directly buy gears. These gears are made out of plastic, these gears are made out of brass, metals like brass, it can be made out of steel. So, you directly go to the market and say these are the specifications, I need a gear. So, you can get those gears in the market. So, that means to say the concept of interchangeability is being well introduced in gears. The most common form of gear tooths are involute and cycloid. The major type of gear are spur gear, helical gear, bevel gear, spiral gear, and worm gears. These are the most common one, and apart from that you have herringbone, so many other gears are there. But for our discussion we will try to look into these 5 gears, and more in particular towards spur gear, because this is the most common gear which is used. So, how are these gear tooths manufactured? They follow involute and cycloid forms. When we talk about spur gear, this is a typical spur gear. This is a cylindrical shaped gear in which the teeth are parallel to the axis. This is the axis, teeth are running parallel to the axis. This is the most commonly used gear with a wide range of application, and it is easiest to manufacture. Lot of gear trains use spur gears. Right? So, this is the most common gear, and lot of interchangeability concept can be followed in these gears. The next one is a helical gear. Helical gear and spur gear, there is only one change. You see there is a change in the gear tooth profile angle with respect to the center axis. So, this is a cylindrical shaped gear with helicoid teeth. Helical gears can bear more load than the spur gear and works more quietly. So, compared to here, this gear, because it can come in contact with the another teeth for a longer time, so it can take heavier loads. Second thing is, it is not straight, so it is at an angle contact, so it can work also very quietly. Okay. The difference between spur and helical is the angle with which the tooth is fabricated. So, this is widely used in industry. Wherever you want to have very heavy load transmission and a quiet working, we used to go for helical gear. The main disadvantage of this gear is the axial thrust force caused by the helical form. There will be axial thrust force. So, that will try to push this fellow out of the shaft. Okay. So, axial thrust force caused by the helical form makes it little difficult when to handle while it is in operation. So, when you are trying to make assembly, you have to be more conscious and cautious as compared to that of spur gear. Herringbone gear. Herringbone gear, you see herringbone, right. So, this is like a fish bone, right, on both sides. This is a cylindrical shaped gear in which the teeth are parallel to the axis. The teeth are parallel to the axis. Okay. This is the most commonly used gear with a wide range of application, and it is also easy to manufacture. Easy to manufacture, please do not compare it with that of spur gear and helical gear, it is little complex, but still herringbone gears are easy to manufacture, and it has lot of applications where you want to transmit more torque, we also go for this. Worm gear. Worm gear, this is a gear, and here is a helix which is maintained. So, this helix should match with this helix. So, we try to transmit power from one axis and which is perpendicular to the other axis. So, the worm gear pair is the name for a meshed worm and a worm wheel. This is called as the worm wheel, and this is called as the worm. Okay. An outstanding feature is that it offers a very large gear ratio in a single mesh. So, generally when we talk about is 1:40. So, if you rotate this 40 times, maybe this gear rotate one time. Okay. So, an outstanding feature is that it offers a very large gear ratio in a single mesh. It could provide a quiet and a smooth operation. The transmission efficiency is relatively poor as compared to that of herringbone, spur gear and helical gear. And people also call it as a self-locking mechanism, because in a spur gear, if you want to make a crane, for example, so you start rotating in one direction, the crane pulls the weight up, and then suppose you want to lock at one point, then we always prefer to go for worm gear rather than spur gear and helical gear. This is a bevel gear. So, bevel gear, look at it. So, here is an axis, here is an axis, right. These gears are usually to connect shafts at an desired angle to each other. So, here I have just put perpendicular, but if you see more closely, this is at an angle. This is at an angle but here I have just intentionally drawn it as 90 degrees. The shaft may lie in the same plane or in a different plane. The shafts may lie in the same plane or in a different plane. Bevel gear. So, bevel gear is also used to transmit power or motion at an angle between these two axes. Helipoid gear. These gears are very similar to bevel gear, but the axis of the two connecting shafts do not intersect. Here it intersects. For example, if I want to be more specific, so it intersects here, but here it will never intersect. They carry curved teeth, are stronger than the other common type of bevel gear and are quietly running. So, we have this helipoid gears. These gears are mainly found in rear axle of automobile, that means to say basically trucks. So, rear axle we will have this. So, it is called as helipoid gear. So, if we start looking at gear terminology, so the first thing which you should understand is the pitch circle. Pitch circle is this which passes through, which is almost in the mid of the tooth, is pitch circle. Top of the pitch circle up to the face of the teeth, if you try to draw one, so that circle is called as addendum circle. So, this is a pitch circle, which a circle which passes through the face, top tooth face, right, or the tooth face. So, that is called as addendum, and below the pitch circle to the root, to the base, okay, to the base is called as dedendum, addendum, dedendum. So, this is called as the addendum circle, this is called as the dedendum circle. Okay. You can't have a perfect flat teeth. So, what we do is we always try to have a curvature, right, and this curvature will also have this, there is a curve and then you also have a curve at the base. So, if there are sharp corners, these are going to be stress points, so it is going to fail. So, this radius is called as fillet radius, which is given at the bottom of the teeth. Okay. If you try to draw a circle between the start point of the radius and the base, that is called as clearance. So, there is, and every teeth has its thickness. So, that is called as the tooth thickness. So, tooth thickness is when the tooth, this is the flank. So, the flank when it passes through the pitch circle diameter between the tooth, okay, flank from one face, flank from the other face, that thickness is called as the tooth thickness. Okay. So, then the flat portion on the tooth is called as the topland, and the width is called as the face width. Okay. Whatever I called it as the flank, it is called, this is the flank which is there, and this is the face which is there. Okay. So, bottomland, this is bottomland, bottomland is this portion, this is called as bottomland, this is called as topland. So, on top of the tooth, on bottom of the tooth. Okay. Then this is the tooth. So, the between two teeth there is a spacing, that is called as the width of space. Okay. That is called the width of space. So, from here to here, this is called the width of space. So, I have covered all. So, clearance, clearance circle, dedendum, dedendum circle, addendum, addendum circle, pitch circle, right, this is a pitch circle. So, then tooth thickness, width of the shape, face width, top land and bottom land, and the face of the tooth is called as the flank. Okay. These are the terminologies. Now, if you look at very closely, you see there is lot of complex geometry which is involved, and generating this geometry through machining, we always try to use the concept of involutes which we study in the engineering drawing. So, that is used when two meshing happens between the tool and the workpiece, we try to generate, or you can try to generate it by milling, by cutting these slots in between. Okay. So, the gear terminology, you have to understand all these terminology. This is very, very important. So, when you look at it here, there is a lot of complexity in the geometry, lot of terminologies. So, and these gears are mechanical in contact. So, when there are two objects are mechanical in contact and over a period of time there is going to be wear and tear. So, this wear and tear leads to error. So, the errors which happen in a spur gear. By the way, if you go back and see this the terminologies I have drawn with respect to only spur gear. If there is a small tilt with respect to the center axis, if there is a small tilt or a small angle between the center axis and the tooth, okay. So, that is called, for example, if it is at an angle, then this angle is called as helix angle. At this helix angle, then you will have bevel gear. So, in bevel gear the geometry is slightly complex, herringbone much more complex, helipoid gears much more complex. So, the gear terminologies for each and everything is the same, but it varies with respect to the angle, and you have to always have various angles with respect to the normal one. So, the error which generally happens are gear blank run out error. What is a blank? Before we manufacture a gear, before we manufacture any gear, the raw material is cut into a cylindrical wheel or a cylinder, it is cut as a cylinder. So, that cylinder is called blank, which will be later converted into a gear during machining operation. Again, manufacturing gear can be done one as a batch size, can be done many as a batch size. When we do many, we have processes like gear honing, and gear honing we have, and then we have many more processes. When it is a single one, you can do it by milling machine. In milling machine, what we do is we try to use an indexing mechanism, so that the gear blank indexes at an angle and stops, and then you just use a horizontal milling cutter to cut and generate these teeths. So, if there is a run out in the blank, that means to say base, so then that also leads to error. Gear machining is done on the gear blank, which may be cast or forged part, or after casting it is generally machined so that you get it to the perfect dimension. The blank would have undergone preliminary machining on its outside diameter OD and the two faces. So, when you try to talk about it, okay. So, you have something like a, this is a blank. So, what we try, first we try to maintain this diameter outer dia OD, and then we try to also maintain, these are the faces, these are the faces where the gears are there. Okay. Sometimes it is on the face, then that also has to be done. The blank may have radial run out on its OD surface due to the error in the preliminary machining. So, this can lead to error when you machine a gear. The gear tooth profile error. This error are caused by deviation of the actual tooth profile from the ideal tooth profile. Maybe a problem with the indexing, or maybe a problem with the cutter. Excessive profile error will result in either friction between the mating teeth or backlash. What is backlash? When two gears mate with each other or mesh with each other, okay, they try to rotate. When you rotate in the forward direction, they will reach a destination point, and when we retract it, this is the start point and this is the end point, this is onward. So, from here to here it goes. While return, suppose it stops here, then that means to say there is a backlash. This can happen because of error in between the two meshing gears. It can be either friction between the mating gears, or it can be backlash, which will lead to gear tooth profile errors. Then gear tooth error. This type of error can take the form of either tooth thickness error or tooth alignment error. Tooth, single teeth, the single geometry in a gear is called as the tooth. Several tooth put together makes a teeth, gear teeth. The tooth thickness measured along the pitch circle may have a large amount of error. So, where is the pitch circle? If you go back, this is the pitch circle. When you measure it with respect to pitch circle, there will be an error. Then pitch error. Error in the pitch cannot be tolerated. What is pitch? The distance between one teeth to the next teeth is the pitch, right. The error in the pitch cannot be tolerated, especially when the gear transmission system is expected to provide a very high degree of positional accuracy for machine slides or axes. The pitch error can either be single pitch error or cumulative pitch error, that means to say several of the teeths, right. So, let us try to now solve a simple problem and let us see how do we do it. So, calculate the setting for a straight spur gear having 40 teeth of module 3 pitch. So, let us try to solution. Setting of a vernier for a gear of 40 teeth. So, it is the teeth around the spur gear of module 3 pitches. So, T M so W equal to T M sin 90 by T. So, this is W can be expressed as 40 teeth, module is 3 and since it is spur gear it is 90 sin 90 by number of teeths T. So, which is nothing but 120 sin 2 degrees and 15 minutes. This is the width of the teeth. So, the next is depth. Depth of tooth is given by the formula H equal to M plus Tm by 2 1 minus cos 90 by T, which is 3 plus Tm 40 into 3 divided by 2 1 minus cos 90 by 40, which is equal to 3.042 millimeter. Okay. So, this is the formula. So, you have to, this is a formula and here this is also a formula where W equal to width is equal to T, teeth into pitch divided by sin. So, this is also a formula where W is nothing but width of teeth W, T is nothing but number of teeth and M is nothing but the module. Okay. So, this will be the depth of tooth and this will be the width of tooth. So, width and depth. So, if you go back and see what is your width, this is the depth from here to here, this is the width. So, what are the different ways of measuring the gear elements? So, first we are trying to measure the run out. So, in case of gear, run out is a resultant of a radial throw of the axis of a gear due to out of roundness of the gear profile. So, there is a center. So, there is a shift in the center. So, a radial throw of the axis of a gear due to the out of roundness of a gear profile. The run out tolerance is the total allowable run out. So, run out also when we try to specify, we also try to specify in the tolerance run out tolerance also. When we talk about assembly, we talk about run out tolerance also. So, how do we do that? We have a dial gauge which is set on top of a probe. So, this is called as a run out probe, which is nothing but a ball. So, with a ball or a wire cylinder. So, this is resting on top of it With this, we will try to find out the deflection on the dial indicator and find out what is the runout. A single probe check, it uses an indicator with a single probe whose diameter makes in contact with the flank. So, this is a flank. So, whenever you do this gear measurement or thread measurement, you always should make sure that the known reference whatever you have must rest on both sides. Okay. Makes in contact with the flank of the adjacent teeth in the area of the pitch circle diameter. So, it should not be in such a way that it is meeting somewhere here. It has to meet at the in the area of the pitch circle, that means to say in the pitch circle. This is the pitch circle diameter PCD. Okay. You can use two probe also. The two probe method is we try to have a dial indicator which is attached to an arm. So, this arm is pivoted in between. One side comes in contact with the teeth of a gear, the other side comes in contact with the a dial, bottom of the dial gauge which rests on it. So, in this one fixed, this is one fixed end. So, this is one free end, the other just opposite to that teeth we will have a tooth profile, which again there is a probe which is fixed now. So, this is the fixed runout probe, these two are fixed runout probe, one is fixed, the other one is free, and when the gear comes in contact it slides over this or it scribes over this and the deflections are read. In this, one fixed and one free moving probe are positioned on diametrically opposite side of the gear and make the contact with identical located elements of the tooth profile. The range of indication is twice, because two probe is twice the amount resulting from a single probe check. The range of indication is twice, this is an indicator, is twice that of a single probe. This is two probe, the first one what we saw was a single probe. Both these things are used to find out the runout. If there is a runout, then what will happen is you will not be able to transmit power efficiently. The next one is how do you measure the pitch? What is pitch? Pitch is nothing but the distance between the tooth. Say for example, from here to here is called as a pitch. This circle is called pitch circle diameter. Okay, here what happens? These instruments enables to measure the caudal pitch with successive pairs of teeth, okay, between two. So, here is a fixed finger, so that rests, and then you have a dial gauge. So, this dial gauge is resting on the moving finger. The instrument comprises a fixed finger and a moving finger. So, this can be set to two identical pointers of adjacent teeth along the PCD can be measured. So, with this what we do is we try to measure the pitch. This is the pitch circle diameter, and whenever you try to touch, it is better that you try to fix the arm on the PCD and this dial on the PCD, so that we can try to measure these two. Then the other check we have is pitch checking. A pitch checking instrument is essentially a dividing head. Dial gauge, it has a dividing head, okay, that can be used to measure pitch variation. So, here you will have a measuring feeler, and then here you will have a locating pin, which is a pin which locates the gear being inspected, it locates here. So, then every time what we do is we try to index, okay. When with this index we try to take gear after gear after gear, we try to check the pitch. So, this is an anvil and this is a counter which is there, a locating. So, this tries to measure the deflection in the dial gauge. So, this is fixed, this is moving. So, because of that, here there will be a motion in the dial gauge, you try to check it. So, the pitch checking instrument is essentially a dividing head that can be used to measure the pitch variation. It has two probes, one is called the fixed, which is with the anvil, the other one is called as the moving. One fixed called the anvil and the other movable probe called the mechanical feeler. So, this is a moving one, up and down feeler. The later is connected to the dial gauge. The moving is connected to the dial gauge and the dial gauge reads the reading. The instrument is located by two adjacent supports resting on the crest of the teeth. Okay. The two flanks is butted against the fixed anvil and the locating support. So, it is one locating support. So, one is fixed and the other one is moving. So, measurement of gear element. So, we wanted to measure the gear profile. So, we want to measure it by using the first principles of metallurgy. So, in this figure, let us first try to understand. So, this is the base circle, this is the base circle, the radius of the base circle is going to be RB, right, and so here is the tooth which we are going to generate the involute. So, this RB meets at a to the base at a point A. So, now you draw perpendicular AT. So, the A dash is a point where it is on the RB base circle. So, it meets at a point A dash. Now, project A dash to C dash, right. The A dash continues, when you do the involute it continues to B dash. So, now you have found out what is C1, you know what is T which is drawn perpendicular to it, and the distance between the intersecting point C dash to A is called H1. The H1 can be expressed as A C dash, which is nothing but arc of A dash, which is radius into this phi. So, let us write it down. So, this is for the next teeth. So, it is phi 2. So, you have A double dash, the same thing. So, the involute changes. So, it is H2. So, let us write it down. So, AT is nothing but the tangent to base circle. Okay. So, when the involute curve is rotated through the roll angle phi 1, the point C1 of the true involute profile is on the vertical tangent AT such that what are they? H1 equal to AC1, which is equal to arc A dash. So, it is nothing but r theta. So, it is RB phi 1. So, let us take it as equation 1. So, where RB is the base circle radius and phi is the roll angle in radians. Okay. Similarly, for any given position, we have Hn equal to Rb into 5n. So, for any given position Hn is equal to. So, if we try to take the actual measurement, is done by rotating the gear against the stylus of the gauge so that the gauge reads 0. Now, see, I am trying to fully write it down, because once you understand and appreciate, then only you can try to do gear measurement. As far as a gear is concerned, there are two things. One is you have to find out the gear teeth thickness, and the other one is the height. So, these two are the very important things. So, that is what. So, here what happened, theoretically they find out and experimentally they find out whether there is an error. Okay. Now, the gear is rotated by a small angle or increment such that as 1 degree or 1 radian increases, this depend upon degree of precision requirement by the user. So, this is not a very important statement, but still you should understand, when the gear is rotated by a small increment such that 1 degree or 1 radian increase, this depends on the precision of the user. So, the error in profile is calculated by comparing the actual reading measured by gauge and true reading. True reading is theoretical calculation. For example, if roll angle is 1 degree, the error will be actual reading minus RB, actual reading RB into 1 into pi by 180 degrees, 180 as measured in the gauge. So, this is how you get the value. So, the next topic will be measurement with gear tooth caliper. What are we trying to do? We are trying to measure the tooth thickness. So, if you see here, the tooth, it will be approximately something like this. So, you see here it is varying, So, it is very difficult for us to directly measure the tooth thickness. So, what we do is we try to use a gear tooth caliper to measure it. For that also we have to understand little bit of terminologies and come out with a methodology. How do you find out the tooth thickness? So, what is tooth thickness here? The tooth thickness is going to be C1 P C2. Okay. And here if you look at it, this figure alone, let me zoom it down and then see. You see here, so this will be something like this and this is here. So, this is your P, this is your C1 and this is your C2. So, now let us start deriving it. Let D be the diameter of pitch circle. So, what is pitch circle? This is the pitch circle, right, pitch circle PCD, right. Then let GC be the caudal thickness of gear tooth along the pitch circle. HC is the caudal height. What is HC? This is the caudal height. Okay. What is Z? Z is the number of teeth on the gear. Then M will be the module, we will see that later, and HA will be the addendum height. Which is approximately equal to module. Okay. So, now first let us try to find out what is caudal thickness GC, which is nothing but chord C1 C2, which is nothing but 2 times into pitch circle radius into sin psi. So, this can be written as 2 times pitch circle radius is d by 2 into sin psi. This is d sin psi. Now, arc C1 P C2 is nothing but d by 2 into 2 psi, value of psi is always in radians. Okay, now I cut down these 2's. So, this is nothing but pi d by 2 z, and z is the number of teeth in radians. Z is the teeth in 2 pi radians. Okay, around the circle, how many number of teeth. Therefore, psi equal to pi divided by 2 z. So, now GC is nothing but d sin pi by 2 z, where pi by 2 z is in radians. Okay. So, GC is equal to d sin 90 by 2 z. So, the argument of sin is in degrees. Okay. So, now caudal height, we have found out GC. Now, we are trying to find out caudal height. Caudal height is nothing but HC equal to HA plus H, which can be written as M plus H. Okay. So, now let me draw. So, this is O, this is C1, this is P, this is C2, and this is 90, and here is a K component, and this is D by 2, okay, and this is nothing but GC by 2. Okay. So, length from this figure, length OK is equal to d by 2 minus h. Now, triangle OC1K, by using Pythagoras theorem, d by 2 the whole square equal to d by 2 minus h the whole square plus GC by 2 the whole square. So, now we can make it as d by d square by 4 equal to d square by 4 plus h square minus dh plus gc square by 4. So, dc square by dc square by 4 is gone. So, what we have is we have dh equal to h square plus gc square by 4, and here h square is neglected. So, finally, what we get is h equal to g c square by 4d. Okay. So, caudal thickness is gc equal to d times sin 90 by z, and caudal height h is equal to gc square by 4d. Also, please make a note, hc equal to m plus gc square by 4d. Till now what we were doing is we were measuring it for a single teeth. Now we will try to measure for a set of teeth. Okay. So, for which we use tool span micrometer. Till now we did only one tooth. Now we will take some 3-4 tooth and then try to measure. Tool thickness is measured by measuring the caudal distance over a number of teeth by using the tool span micrometer, also called as flange micrometer. So, the measurement is based on the base tangent method. So, now let us see a base tangent method. In this case, tooth thickness is measured by measuring the caudal distance over a number of teeth. So, we can see that if a straight generator is a line A, B, C is being rolled. So, this is a circle, this is ABC, ABC is rolled, okay, is rolled along a base circle, then its ends trace an involute profile, which is nothing but A2A A1 and C2 C1. So, we can say AC equal to A1 C2, which is equal to A2 C1, which is equal to A0 C0. Okay. A0 C0 is nothing but the arc length of the base circle between the origin of involute. Okay. Now, if we have a gear with n number of teeth and the length AC on the pitch, pitch circle, which corresponds corresponds to S number of teeth called tooth span as shown in the figure, then AC is equal to S minus half times pitch. AC is nothing but half times pitch. Therefore, angle subtended by AC is equal to S minus half into 2 pi by n. By the way, S minus half is nothing but, suppose you try to take a diameter and then you try to take a next one. So, we are trying to calculate from here to here. So, one pitch, half pitch, right, 2 pi by n radians. So, here delta is an involute function of pressure angle, which is phi. Okay. Arc BD subtends an angle which is equal to S minus half into 2 pi by n plus 2 del. So, which is equal to S minus half 2 pi by n plus 2 times tan phi minus phi. Okay. This is tan phi is del. So, this is a separate derivation. How do you define del converted into a pressure angle? So, then we will see that later. So, BD is now substituted like this. Thus, BD is equal to S minus half 2 pi by n plus 2 times tan phi minus phi into RB, radius into theta RB. So, now this RB can be written in terms of, RB is now written in terms of RP into cos of phi. So, this is S minus half 2 pi by n plus 2 tan phi minus phi into RP cos phi. Okay. RP is nothing but mn by 2. So, now the arc length finally of BD is equal to n m by 2 cos phi S minus 1 by 2 pi by n plus 2 tan phi minus phi. So, this will be the arc length of BD. From here we try to find out the caudal measuring error. So, we are left with one terminology. I have to tell you how did we get this tan phi by phi from del. The objective of this explanation is how do we get del in terms of tan phi minus phi. So, what we do is we try to take a gear, try to take one more gear. Okay. So, this is involute. Okay. So, this is the other thing. So, we draw up a tangent which passes through C, which goes down. So, this point is called as C and this is called as A, and this touches a circle called B, and this is O, is RP, and this is the involute to profile which meets at L. This is center is C. So, now I join this, which is nothing but del, okay, and I draw a perpendicular here which is nothing but phi, pressure angle phi. Okay. So, this is the pitch circle PCD, this is the base circle, and same way this is the PCD and this is the base circle. I am taking two base circle, I am taking two different gears, I am trying to mesh it. So, I have drawn a tangent. So, tangent is nothing but A, C, B, which is drawn perpendicular, and then I try to draw this is nothing but the involute of a tooth. So, that is C, which passes through C and then which meets the base circle at L. So, this angle which is subtended is called as del. Okay. The radius, whichever this radius is called as, this is radius is called as RB, and this radius is called as RP up to pitch circle. So, now AB is common tangent to base circle of two gears in mesh, right. So, triangle OCB is nothing but RB equal to RP cos phi. Now, we know BC equal to BL, which is the arc, okay, and this derivation we have seen in the first one. We have seen in the first figure what we have explained to you, how do we find out the thickness. Okay. So, BL is nothing but RB, which is phi plus del. So, from the triangle OCB, right angled at B, we have tan phi is equal to BC by OB, which is nothing but BL by BL. So, now when you put it back into this equation, 1, so in equation 1 we get tan phi equal to RB phi plus delta by RB, and this can be written as del equal to tan phi minus phi. Okay. This is what is the relationship which is given, and what is phi? Phi, we know phi because phi is a pressure angle in a gear. Okay. So, thank you.